All right, so 3-4, day 2, we're going to continue our talk with equations of lines, but we are going to talk about standard form. And what standard form is it's basically, I call it ABC 1, 2, 3 order. We have A, B, and C. We have our X and our Y on the same side. And we need to make sure that A is not negative. None of these are fractions. And we start out usually in point slope form or slope intercept form, and then we can change it into what we call standard form. So let's go ahead and practice doing that. And we are going to start with, I'm going to use point slope form, and then we'll go from there, but you can use slope intercept form. But this one has a point and a slope, so we're going to start off. It's just easier to start off with point slope form. So remember point slope form, it's up here. We're going to do y minus our y, which is 8, is equal to our slope, which is -3/5, and then parenthesis x minus -10, which turns into a positive. So now what we're going to do is first just go ahead and distribute everything. We'll get rid of the fraction in just a second. So y minus 8 equals -3/5 x, and then we're going to take -3 times 10, which is -30, and then we'll divide it by the denominator 5, which is going to give us -6. Now, we're going to get this 8, so we're basically changing it into slope-intercept form, and then we'll change it into standard. So y equals -3/5 x plus 2. So now our goal is to get rid of this fraction, and how do we do that is we multiply by its denominator. So since its denominator is 5, that's what we're going to multiply each term by, and it's kind of distributing to each thing here. So it turns into a 5y equals, it cancels out the denominator and we're just left with the numerator. And then we can now move our -3x to be to the other side, moving our x and y to be together. And then that will be our last step. So 3x plus 5y is equal to 10. So this is standard form, and we are done. Let's go ahead. If you want to try this one on your own, go for it. If you want to follow along, that's fine too. So first step, we're going to find our slope, because we can't go anywhere without our m. Can't use either one of these, slope intercept or point slope, without a slope. So we need to take our y's and subtract them, and take our x's and subtract them. So that's going to give us -3 for a slope. So y minus y equals slope, parenthesis x minus an x. And then we're going to go ahead and distribute. So y minus 4 is equal to -3x plus 15, adding 4. So y equals -3x plus 19. And then our last step is to get the x over to the other side, because we don't have any fractions. We don't have to deal with those. We're just going to get x and y together on the same side. And x is positive, so we are good. There is slope-intercept form, or standard form from slope-intercept form. All right, next we're going to look at horizontal and vertical lines. Now, horizontal lines, we have, I always call them HOI lines. Horizontal, 0 is the slope, and it's a y equals a number for the equation. Vertical line, I call those VUCs. And that's vertical, undefined slopes, and it's x equals a number. So they're so steep, not even Spider-Man can climb, and those are undefined, and this has a 0 slope. Okay, so let's take a look at these two here. This horizontal line, now if we calculated, we didn't know it was horizontal and we calculated its slope, then we would subtract our y's, subtract our x's, and we would get 0 divided by -5, which is 0. So we know our m is 0, and so that gives you the knowledge that it's a horizontal line. And then you go, oh, okay, a horizontal line. Well, notice that they have the same y value because it's y equals that number. So every point on that line is always going to have a y value of -2. So it's already basically telling you the equation up here that it's going to go through the y-axis at that point all the way along that line. Okay, so once you get that slope and you're like, oh, it's a special line, then you can kind of look at your ordered pairs here and see, oh, there we go. Yep, they have the same y value. So that's going to happen again over here if we find our slope. So 3 minus -2 over 5 minus 5, which gives you 5 over 0, which you can't divide by 0, so this is an undefined slope. And when m is undefined, we know it's a vertical line. Well, where do they have in common here? Oh, their x's are 5, so this is an x equals 5, a vux. Vertical, undefined, x equals, and x equals 5. So horizontal and vertical are easy, but at the same time, they also take a little bit of thought to make sure we don't mix them up. Lastly, we're going to take a look at perpendicular and parallel. Perpendicular, we know if we flip it and change its sign, then we can get a slope that's perpendicular. So if it's 1/5, then a slope that we are looking for perpendicular would end up being -5. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and plug it into point slope form down here using our point, using our slope that we just found. Not the original because we want perpendicular to it. So we want to make sure we use our new slope here. So x is 2, y is 0. Oops, should be -0 equals. There we go. And now we want to distribute and change it into slope intercept form. So it's y equals -5x plus 10. And there was no getting y alone step because it was already alone. So our last one here is going to be identifying our slope here, which is -1/2. We are looking for parallel. So if we want parallel, that means we need the same slope. So we're going to use -1/2 as our slope. And we are going to plug in 2 for our y and 4 for our x. And then we're going to distribute. So y minus 2 equals -1/2 x. Negative times a negative is a positive. Half of 4 is 2. And then we're going to add 2 as our last step. So it's y equals -1/2 x plus 4.